There's a quiet war inside many of us, a battle between who we are and who we once needed to be to survive. And at the center of it all is the wounded child, still sitting in the dark corners of memory, still clutching fears too big for their tiny hands. For years we'd been told to toughen up, to forget the past, to move on. But what if healing didn't mean forgetting? What if the path forward was through ancient wisdom? This is where Stoicism enters, not as a cold, emotionless philosophy, but as a torchlight guiding you through the shadows of your earliest pain. Because the truth is, Stoicism isn't about shutting down feelings. It's about facing them, honestly, courageously, and without letting them control you. To heal the inner child is not to go back and coddle them, but to finally give them the structure, the calm, the strength they never had. And Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they weren't just philosophers, they were survivors. Men who suffered loss, exile, betrayal, and still chose virtue over victimhood. Imagine telling your inner child this: you were never broken, you were overwhelmed, but now we rise. That's where the real work begins. Stoicism teaches us one fundamental principle that reshapes everything. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. That includes how we respond to the wounds we carry from childhood. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe you were never enough in someone's eyes. Maybe you grew up feeling invisible. And all this time you've been trying to earn the love you never received. But what if you stopped trying to fix the past and started trying to master the present? The Stoics believed in logos, the rational order of the universe. They believed that even pain, even trauma, even chaos had purpose. Your inner child's suffering wasn't meaningless. It made you alert. It made you sensitive. It made you aware. But now, as an adult, you don't have to stay trapped in the defense mechanisms that once saved you. The hypervigilance, the people-pleasing, the anger, the silence. You can look at those responses with compassion and say, "Thank you for protecting me, but I no longer need you." This is the part of healing where most people get stuck. They either drown in their emotions or deny them completely. But Stoicism walks the middle path. It doesn't ask you to stop feeling. It asks you to stop letting your feelings own you. When Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he was speaking directly to the wounded child inside every adult. Because trauma doesn't just live in what happened, it lives in how often we relive it. And so, we return to a powerful question. What if your inner child doesn't need fixing, but witnessing? What if you sat with that pain, not to wallow, but to understand, to listen without judgment, to say, "Yes, that hurt. Yes, you deserved better, but I am here now. I am the adult you needed back then." And from that place of grounded awareness, something beautiful happens. You stop outsourcing your peace to the people who once hurt you. You stop waiting for closure. You become your own guardian. The Stoics were radical in their clarity. They taught that adversity was not an interruption. It was the path itself. Epictetus, born a slave, could have lived his life in bitterness. Instead, he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Apply that to your inner child, and suddenly, your story shifts. You're no longer the victim of your childhood. You're the author of your healing. Healing through Stoicism isn't flashy. It's not a tearful breakthrough in a therapist's office or a viral quote on social media. It's quiet. It's steady. It's choosing, day by day, to respond with wisdom instead of wounds. It's catching yourself when you spiral into old narratives. It's breathing before reacting. It's saying no without guilt. It's standing in front of a mirror, looking into your own eyes and saying, "I protect you now." In the end, Stoicism doesn't just teach us how to live. It teaches us how to parent the scared, hurting, neglected parts of ourselves. And in that parenting, we begin to rewire everything. We become less reactive, more centered. We stop begging others to complete us. Because we've met the most important person in our lives, our truest self. And for the first time, that self feels safe. Once you recognize that your inner child doesn't need fixing, only understanding, the real transformation begins. But this journey doesn't end in insight. Stoicism calls you into action, into practice, into the discipline of becoming the guardian you never had. Because healing, real healing, is not passive. It's not a feeling you chase. It's a decision you make, over and over, especially on the hard days. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Daily rituals were essential to their strength. Marcus Aurelius started each morning reminding himself when he'd encounter rudeness, selfishness, even cruelty, and that none of it had power over his mind unless he allowed it. Imagine applying that same ritual to the wounds you carry. Each day, you wake up and remind yourself, the world may stir my pain, but it cannot control me. I will not abandon myself again. This is where Stoicism and inner child healing unite, in the quiet, consistent return to self-authority. The wounded child in you learned to react, maybe through fear, shame, people-pleasing, or retreat. But Stoicism teaches you to respond, with principle, with clarity, with intention. The difference is everything. Instead of chasing validation, you return to your values. Instead of spiraling in regret, you return to the present. And instead of punishing yourself for what was out of your control, you choose compassion. That is power, and that is healing. It's the opposite of toxic positivity. You don't pretend life will be easy. You expect difficulty. You prepare your soul. So, ask yourself, what would it look like to anticipate emotional triggers, not as threats, but as opportunities to reparent yourself in real time? Someone ignores you. You feel rejected. But instead of spiraling, you say, my value isn't up for debate. I am not that child waiting to be chosen. I choose myself now. That's how wounds become wisdom. And in this process, something subtle but profound begins to shift. The voice in your head, the one that used to echo with criticism or fear, becomes steady, kind, and clear. It becomes the Stoic voice. It says, you've been through worse. You're still standing. Nothing outside of you can define your peace unless you give it permission. This is not denial. This is transcendence. You stop expecting others to redeem your past. You stop hoping that someone will show up and give you the apology that never came. You begin to understand, closure is not something you're given. It's something you create. Through boundaries, through honesty, through choosing what is right over what is easy. And suddenly, even your pain becomes sacred, not because it was fair, but because it awakened you. The Stoics held freedom above all else, but not the kind of freedom that depends on your environment or your past. No, the freedom of your inner world. The freedom to choose your response, to write your own meaning, to walk forward when the world expected you to collapse. When you take that kind of agency over your inner child's pain, something miraculous happens. You stop performing. You stop pretending to be whole. You become whole, piece by piece, as you reclaim every lost part of yourself. And here's the paradox the Stoics understood better than most. The more you let go of what you can't control, the more power you gain over what truly matters. You can't change your childhood. You can't undo what hurt you, but you can refuse to be defined by it. You can decide that your scars are not signs of weakness, but survival. You can rise, not despite the pain, but because of it. So what does this look like in everyday life? It's not dramatic. It's not about breakthroughs that leave you in tears. It's subtle. You speak gently to yourself when you make a mistake. You pause before reacting when someone hits your emotional sore spot. You rest without guilt. You grieve the things you never had, then stop searching for them in places that continue to hurt you. And you move with quiet integrity, not to prove your worth, but because you finally know it. That is the Stoic revolution. Not the suppression of emotion, but the mastery of it. Not becoming stone, but becoming fire. Contained, focused, and illuminating. You don't need to be invulnerable. You just need to be anchored. And that's what Stoicism gives you. A foundation so strong that even your most fragile parts can rest safely upon it. So now, if your inner child still trembles, still doubts, still looks to others for love, remind them, you are no longer alone. I am here, and I've got you now. That is not weakness. That is strength. That is Stoicism in its highest form. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy, psychology, and self-mastery. Because healing is not a destination, it's a daily practice, and you don't have to walk it alone. Until next time, remember, your past may have shaped you, but only you decide what comes next.